Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Eincrou and Stardusk podcast. We've been away for a while, but we are now returning to the podcast, and we're going to talk about PC versus consoles. So, what do you think we should talk about today, Stardusk?
Well, as I said, I think we're probably going to freestyle this, but both of us have, I imagine, relatively strong views, or maybe specific views on the PC console debate.
I think it's fair to say that we both come down on the PC side.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm actually of the opinion that as far as actual gaming experience is concerned, I think the existence of consoles and the perpetuation of consoles as a main medium of gaming is actually damaging to gaming on the whole. I want to distinguish that from saying it's not profitable. It's incredibly profitable financially, but in terms of actual gaming quality and experience, I think it is damaging. So,
well, that's quite a statement. I actually kind of disagree with that, but let's start out with the very basics. So, PC is a platform that everyone knows is extremely expensive, but it can provide a really good experience if you've got the hardware and if you don't have the niggling issues that can come up as a result of PC having just so many different configurations that the developer can't possibly take into account all at once. So PC does have its drawbacks, but it has its strengths, and certainly console does as well. And I think that the reason that console is so huge in the market right now is because, first of all, it's a lot easier to get into. There's a much lower price point if you want to enter into the console gaming space. So if you got what, $500, you can buy a PS4, you can buy an Xbox One, but at $500, it can get you a decent gaming PC, but not a fantastic one that is going to really blow away the console experience. So people go for the consoles instead of PC because they may not necessarily find that the increase in graphical fidelity is worth paying $1,000 for a really strong PC. And the impact that this has on the ratio of people who play mostly on consoles to PC is, I think, very significant.
I partially agree with that. I mean, I didn't actually write all of this down, but I did my own sort of research, if you will. And I talked to a lot of people who play on consoles back in the day when Mass Effect multiplayer was popular. And then having surveyed some stuff on the internet, my impression is that the price issue is less of an issue than people believe. I mean, I know that's very common to cite that, and you did as well. But I think if we really want to be accurate about it, I think it's a convenience issue. I mean, it's simplistic as it sounds. I think most people play on console based on many talks I've had with consolers and entries in forums, because it's just easy. You can just The PC is complicated. You know, there's settings. If you want the mods, you have to do this. You have to create folders. It's complex. You know, with a console, you stick the game in. You sit on your couch. You have your controller, and that's it. And I think by and large, that is by far the driving force behind that. Because I hate to say it and turn this into a generality, or a generalization rather, but people tend to shy away from complex things. If you have to think too hard, or make too much effort, and there's another option, you're going to probably take the other option.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Convenience is a big factor. You can expect that it's going to work when you put the disc in and you turn it on, except of course if you're in the early days of the Xbox One. I had a friend who, I mean, you've probably heard of this. I had a friend who went through 3 Xbox Ones in like the first couple of weeks of release because the damn things just wouldn't work. And I forget what he told me he did to get it working, but it was something really weird. But the kind of problems he was having are things that you kind of expect to see on PC, just because of how varied the platform is and how many different specifications there can be. But the problems he was having were things like his character. I think he was playing Rise, Son of Rome, or whatever it's called. His character was invisible. Stuff like that, insane stuff like that, frankly, you actually do rarely see on PC. So it is incredibly embarrassing. And he was unable to save his game, and so he had to restart every single time he exited the game. I mean, yeah, that's an old school way of doing things, but games just aren't designed to accommodate you having to restart every single time. So I forget where I was.
Well, regarding the price, I don't mean to cut you off, but regarding the price thing, just briefly, I know some people who have done the calculations, which I have not, and this is for, say, taking a good, maybe on top of the line, but or maybe a very good gaming PC, taking into account things such as Steam sales and what have you, and he did some calculations, say, versus PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and over the course of, say, 2 years, say, purchasing the same amount of games, and roughly it came out to the same price primarily because of things with Steam sales, and if you have the ability to build your own computer, it can be a lot cheaper and things like that. So even when there is slightly more cost, I still think it really comes back to this whole convenience thing. And I want to note, and I notice this constantly from multiplayer games, for Xbox Party Live. I mean, PC people, generally speaking, in my experience with regards to multiplayer games, tend to be far less social, which is not to say they're asocial or social morons, but there's a whole kind of social dynamic to console game, particularly Xbox, with the Xbox Party Live, with people, just sort of interacting that really doesn't exist on PC. And I think that's another element that people often forget.
Yeah, certainly taking into account the Steam sales and everything, it's a lot cheaper to buy games, I would say, in general. So, yeah, I totally believe in that calculation that you mentioned earlier. Though the upfront cost, I think, is something that's very significant. I think that's a big deal when it comes to people who they want to get into gaming, but they don't necessarily find having that extra visual quality or that extra ability to customize the experience to be enough worth enough to them that they'll block out $1,500 to buy a really good gaming PC. They'd rather just purchase the gaming console, and the effect over the entire market, I think, is that most people go for the lower entry point option, which is the consoles. And so there is that community on the consoles that is more robust because more people are, more of the people who are gamers are doing that. And I think you'll find that a lot of people who play on PC don't have just a PC. So they can go and play on consoles too and be a part of creating that amazing console community that I think is a real big factor. I do think it's a real big factor, but I think it's a big factor because the price point to enter into it is a lot lower.
Yeah, I definitely see that argument. It's sort of easy access, but there's also a mentality behind that. I mean, in addition to the cost benefit, I mean, take a hardcore RPG player. I would, maybe I'm wrong, but I would not hesitate to say that the vast majority of hardcore RPG gamers are going to play on PC, not on the console, just because most RPGs have a lot more replayability, assuming modding capabilities and things like that on a computer, as opposed to just a console. I mean, the consolers who are playing Skyrim and just stuck to it on console, they stopped playing it way back in 2011, effectively.
I get a sour taste whenever I think of someone playing Skyrim on a who would do that?
Well,
who would do that? And I know that it does well on console, so people are doing it.
Well, this is my point. I mean, the console I think is a much more sort of universal gaming experience for a lot of people, and I'm not gonna. I hate to use the term a hardcore gamer. What does that even mean? But as people have seen, with my 3,527 hours of Skyrim, you're not going to find consolers with that amount of time for any specific game. In my experience and observations, they tend to sort of jump from different game to game. They're not the kind of people just invest a lot of time in one game because
I
that's
agree.
just not the nature of the console, I think.
I agree with that a lot. You've got the renting games market, which is the absolute epitome of what you're talking about. You rent a game for a couple days, you play the 6 hour, 12 hour experience, and then you rent another game when you go and take the first game back. That's how I did things when I was primarily a console player. But once I did get into PC, I found that with the incredible amount of customization you can do on PC that is available in games such as Skyrim, there's just almost unlimited possibilities for getting value out of one game rather than having to keep searching for different games.
Exactly, and I think that also speaks to a different kind of person. Um, I mean, like I said, the kind of social experience that I've observed on, say, Xbox Live parties. I mean, not directly since I never participated, but there's a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of, for lack of a better word, immaturity going on. It's I really do think it's a very much almost like a different gaming race. I know people joke about console PC race, but for the reasons you cited, the people who just want the entry level prices, I think in a sense they're more casual because they tend not to obsessively play only one or two games, and because well they can't, there are no modding capabilities. There really are almost at least two different species. I think generally there are people who play both, but usually in my experience, especially with the young people, when they do graduate from console to PC, they don't really want to go back to console.
That was me.
Yeah, yeah, and some other people that I used to play with, they only a few years ago they migrated from console to PC, and they're not going to go back. And yeah,
When you talk about like people having that community that they can go to on the console, it reminds me of one of my buddies who he's a big Battlefield fan. Uh, he
okay,
likes to play the multiplayer with his friends, and he owns both Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 on both PC and on Xbox.
yeah,
Battlefield 3 on Xbox 360 and Battlefield 4 on Xbox One. And the reason he owns it on both was because I'm a PC guy, so there's no way in hell I'm going to play a first-person shooter with a controller on a console.
yeah.
So he got the Battlefield games on PC so he could play with me, but then he also got it on the console so he could play with his friends who don't have PCs. And why don't they have PCs that they can play Battlefield on? Well, it's because they aren't as serious in getting the best game experience. So they go for the lower price options so that they can spend that money that otherwise they would have to dedicate to a PC on things that they value more than the PC experience. So that's what brings people to the consoles, in my view, is they value other things more than having the top quality experience that gaming can offer right now. And I think that's a perfectly valid way for people to game. Not everyone needs to have, the absolute top quality. Not everyone needs to have the Lamborghini, but for those that do, I think they can rest assured that yes, the Lamborghini is better than the Honda, but that's because people who with the Honda don't necessarily have the means to buy the Lamborghini, or even if they do, even if they could save out that money, save out that block of money that they need to get the really nice PC, maybe they just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're probably right about that. And I mean, this is not hard evidence, this is anecdotal, but in my experience, PC gamers tend to behave more maturely as well. It's a really a
Well,
different mentality. I know this
well,
sounds like
what I
a
want to
bold,
know is like how do you think that this state of affairs came about? What created it?
specifically
Is it
my
the
observation.
convenience thing?
Well, I think, I mean, this is going to sound outrageous to some people, but I think PC gamers, generally speaking, tend to be more critical people, more thoughtful people, because they're the people who are willing to forego convenience for the sake of a better gaming experience. They're willing to invest the time on, in how do you install a mod? How do you update this graphics thing? How do you do X, Y, Z? I mean, you have to be willing to do. You're going to have to be willing to engage your mind war. Period. When you have a PC, when you want to play a game on a PC, it's not just insert, play, enjoy. It's download. Maybe I need to adjust this, and how do I match this up with my graphics and I mean, so by its very nature, PC gaming is going to force you to think, to be more reflective about, well, at least in this case, the gaming process. That's not for people who clearly have made a decision to say, I want the lower end experience. I just want to play the game, enjoy it. I don't want to think. And I've literally had consolers tell me something almost identical, that, when I play a game, I just want to stick it in, sit on my couch and play it and not think. Okay, that's perfectly
Mm-hmm.
valid, but that to me is illustrative of a very different mentality, and essentially almost a different species in terms of the gaming world, from the kinds of people I know from the PC gaming world.
I wonder if you were to take someone who was like what you described, they just like to sit and enjoy the gaming experience. If you were to take someone like that, rip them off the couch, sit them in front of the desk, and to a nice PC, and have them play the same game that they would normally play on a console that's been ported to PC, do you think that that kind of person would be sold on PC gaming just based on the comparison between the console experience and the PC experience? Do you think
Well,
that's enough to sell somebody,
um,
even if
I
it
don't.
does take more work to get that experience? Do you think?
I don't think a one-time experience would be it. I think it would have to be gradual. It would, and you would also have to have the impetus to be found in specific games. So, say a game like Skyrim. I've heard stories. Actually, no, I've read a lot of stories online, of people who started playing Skyrim on Xbox 360,
Oops, we kind of let
or
that one slip.
yeah, or PS3, and then they watch, Gopher, of course. Gopher's modding reviews and things like that, and then it's, I gotta play this on PC. And over time, they made comments to the effect of, I'm just playing PC, period, because look all the stuff I can do. And so I think you need to have that kind of motivation where there's some game you enjoyed initially, and the playing on the PC just creates a completely new experience out of that game. Whereas I don't think it's enough just to have a graphical update. For example, I mean, Battlefield 4, yeah, a lot better graphics on PC. Um, Most people, and the other thing is, you could say, well, mouse control is a lot better, but people I know, they just get so used to the controller that they don't even want to bother with a mouse. So it would have to be a specific game that offers just many more options on the PC in contrast to the console, in my humble opinion, that would get someone to totally transition over.
Well, let's talk about like how weak. I mean, did you play console games at some point, mostly
Well,
before you
as let me, I
before
was
you
gonna,
went to PC?
I wanted to mention this. I'm an old man, so
Yeah.
the last console I had was in 1986,
Okay.
Super Nintendo. Yeah, so it's been a while. I have not touched a controller since the late 80s, and yeah, so
So
it's been a long
unfortunately,
time.
that question's kind of irrelevant because PC gaming at that point was, I would say, probably inferior to the consoles.
Yeah, yeah, there were some weird games on Macintosh and what have you.
And there were certainly, I mean, it started with basically PCs playing games, but they weren't designed to do that, so they didn't have the capabilities that a dedicated system like the Atari systems and the Nintendo systems had. So
No, I mean that's why when I was a kid, I went with and a young teenager, I went with the Super Nintendo. Of course, Sega was a big competitor. Now, I should mention once again, being an old man, arcade games. That was mostly my gaming experience when I was a kid and a teenager, was going to the arcade and playing Street Fighter or Golden Axe or all these different games back then, which were primarily arcade. Sticking the quarters into the slots, and that was just a different era. I mean, it wasn't even. I think gradually consoles came into vogue, but most people I knew, their gaming experience was going to the arcade. And I mean, arcade games, I don't know, do they even, I mean, there were these massive places where you could just play game after game, this kind of thing. I think that disappeared, those.
They've largely died out, unfortunately.
Yeah, well.
I mean, if you see an arcade, it's probably in a place that does other things. It's not just a dedicated, come here, play arcade cabinets.
Yeah, but that was really my gaming background. And I mean, yeah, I got the Super Nintendo for a while, and then I took a break from gaming for a long time. And then it was just PC. So I've been on PC as long as I can remember. I mean, for maybe almost 20 years. Yeah.
Well, I started out, as I think many people did who grew up in the 90s, with this Sega Genesis, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo. Though we didn't have a Super Nintendo, we had a Genesis. That's what I started with. Didn't know PC gaming was a thing, except for like the Magic frickin' School Bus learning type games, which those aren't any fun. And it's a shame because that was the heyday of the what was it called, Infinity Engine or?
Yeah, those were some amazing experiences. I mean,
I missed that, unfortunately. I was too young.
Well, it's cheap. You can get they've redone them. The problem I found, it's weird, but I mean, I think we've been spoiled by this generation of graphics and this generation of engines, because I got Baldur's Gate 2, the revamped edition, and it's still a great game, but if you get used to sort of more dynamic combat, and I thought the combat back then was really good, it's hard to enjoy it on the same level. I guess you get spoiled by some of the progress. The story is still great. The Infinity Engine, I mean, this game, Pillars of Eternity, that's coming out probably in quarter 3 or 4 this year, is going to be running on something, either the Infinity Engine or something very similar to it. And that's great, but I think for its time, the Infinity Engine games, the Baldur's Gate games, the Icewind Dale games were just amazing games.
Oh, unfortunately, I missed those. It was before I really got into the PC game.
You can still get them; they're super cheap. I got Icewind Dale a couple of months ago for Icewind Dale 2 for something like $3.
I think I would have the same. I would have the problem that you described of it just feels so outdated, and those games were amazing for the time, but now they feel sluggish, clunky. The interfaces aren't necessarily what we expect anymore.
Sadly, yes, and I think this is going to be I don't want to get too off topic, but for the Kickstarter project, say that Obsidian's working on, Pillars of Eternity, that's going to be a challenge. I mean, obviously, a lot of the people who invested in that and wanted to see it come to fruition, they know kind of what to expect. But I'm just hoping that they make the Infinity Engine, or whatever the equivalent might be, somewhat more dynamic. But I think this is a general trend you see in gaming overall, is that it's gone, as far as role-playing games, it's gone from, everything is dialogue to, then I think Dragon Age Origins was a kind of an intermediary form, if you will. You had a silent protagonist, but everyone else had dialogue. And then I think Mass Effect, I mean, I hate to bring Mass Effect up, but really just sort of was a game changer, at least in BioWare games as well as maybe for other genres, despite it being a soap opera, that you had this interactive dialogue thing. And so, unless it's a Kickstarter project, which doesn't have the funding, you're not going to get a ton of voice acting in those, but everything's just going to be voiced. And with that comes, of course, almost this need to have sort of dynamic combat. If you have dynamically voiced characters and you don't have dynamic combat, it's like a mismatch, basically.
You get the old mixed with the new in a very jarring way.
Exactly. So you get spoiled by the newer games. I think what's lacking today compared to those games is the amount of depth and thought put into them. I mean, one does have the feeling that everything is just being rushed out compared to back then. And maybe it's just because the market wasn't that huge back then, and these guys were kind of, I hate to say it, just doing it more for love of what they're doing than, we need to meet the profit margin. And that's the case with so many different things, but it just seemed like they put so much energy into that, into those games, especially the Baldur's Gate series. And I have not seen, in terms of energy input, it's like since. I mean, this is what, going on 15 years, It's incredible, but since then I've not seen the same amount of energy and dedication put into something. Maybe with the exception of some Elder Scrolls titles, but it's a very different genre, so...
I know exactly what you're talking about. It seems with these older games there were all kinds of secrets and hidden things that you might not necessarily discover unless you're looking at a guide. And there was depth and just so much to do that wasn't the main storyline. That it's like Diablo 3 as compared to the earlier Diablo games. Diablo 3, I mean, it's got a very well told story, I think. Some people might disagree with that, but I think they put a lot of effort into telling the story in a modern way that people can get engaged with all the voice acting and cutscenes and all that. But it seems like there's just not as much off the beaten path that you can do as compared to the earlier games. There are some things like the pony level that they put in, but I mean, I don't know the most about Diablo 3. I haven't played it in a while, so maybe they've added some tricks and things in there to work towards. But it seems like nowadays games will have the story and they'll have a few side things you can do, but ultimately you do the main story and that's it. And I remember back to one of the first, in fact, the first RPG I ever played, which was, of course, on a console. It was PlayStation 1, Final Fantasy VII. First RPG I ever played, changed my life. RPGs are now my favorite genre and have been for a while. But that game had all kinds of stuff that you could do optionally that it was actually ridiculous how much optional stuff there was. They put so much effort into creating replayability, and I guess not necessarily replayability because you could do it all in the same playthrough, but they put in just dozens and dozens of hours of optional stuff that people normally wouldn't do, and I just don't see that in games in RPGs.
Well, I
these
mean,
days,
I want to tie that into. Let me just tie that into one of my original statements. Is that which was a relatively bold statement. Granted, Final Fantasy was a PlayStation game, but you don't see that anymore. I think in large measure because of I just want to get my gaming rocks off mentality. I mean, deep exploration of games is not something you're going to find amongst the console dwellers. It just, barring perhaps Dark Souls, but
Dark Souls is actually an example of a game that does do what I'm talking about. There
yeah,
are
right.
So super weapons you can create, and
I was saying
I don't know if it has optional
that,
bosses,
but
but
generally
like
speaking, most console people don't want exploring 10,000 different side quest options and and what have you. And this is very much a PC thing. I think as the consoles became more and more popular, let's face it, they dominate the market compared to PC. With that came a mentality, I need to get my gaming rocks off as quickly as possible mentality, and that's infiltrated everything. And now, as you know, most RPG games are console ports. I mean, the next Dragon Age that's coming out it's going to be a console port, of course. So it's the developers need to cater to the console market. It's the most profitable, and since virtually everything, at least, is in the RPG world and elsewhere is in the console port, they're not going to have that kind of depth. But this is why, conversely, you have things like Kickstarter, with Pillars of Eternity being developed by Obsidian, the guys who made Baldur's Gate 2, etc., and Icewind Dale 2, where that is going to be that kind of game. It'll be all dialogue, written dialogue. You have to read. People don't like reading, I know that, but some people. But that's going to have that kind of feeling, because this is what those guys did, and it's PC exclusive. I guarantee any role-playing game that's PC exclusive is going to have that kind of feeling. Just because
I love that feeling of, hey, if I want to get like a ridiculous weapon that's so good, I can do this quest chain, grind this objective, and I can get it. And I don't have to complete the game, but it's something that I can do optionally that it makes the world, it makes the game feel bigger and larger. And if Pillars of Eternity can pull that off, that'd be great.
I think they will. I'm pretty confident in Pillars of Eternity. It will be all dialogue. You have to read it, but this makes I could argue that makes way for a lot of imagination on the part of a player, and it's going to have just a ton of stuff to do, and it's going to be like Baldur's Gate 2 plus plus plus. I mean, it's going to be more. I think the engine will be more advanced. Graphics will be updated. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's coming out, as I said, quarter 3 or 4, but it's going to be PC exclusive, so they know the audience they're catering. The people I paid a little bit into it. I mean, this is so they're going to have that. But if it's a more generic title like Dragon Age Inquisition, the one coming up that BioWare is making, I don't know. I mean, they've talked about all this exploration, but that's typically much more of a PC feature. So
I found that Dragon Age, the first one, a lot of the expansiveness of the game was, it seemed like to experience it you had to do multiple playthroughs rather than there was just a bunch of side stuff you can do. Because when I played through Dragon Age, I did all the side stuff, all the optional stuff, and I completed the game plus all of that in only like 40 hours, which is not exactly how things worked in the past. It would be 100 hours of optional stuff plus the main story.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 2 was certainly that way. There were just tons. I mean, Skyrim too. I mean, that you have this. You can complete Skyrim if you want. I mean, they did some record in like an hour and a half in theory if you just rush. But if you want to make dragon scale armor, you're gonna have to get to the point where you can kill a dragon. You're gonna have to improve your smithy skill. This is just vanilla, and it's just there's something rewarding to grinding or working towards a certain goal. That it tends to be lacking in today's games, and I can't imagine. I can't imagine them anything mainstream that is that's not Kickstarter or crowdfunded moving away from that paradigm, because developers are just responding to what players want. Yes, there's so much talk about games being dumbed down, but that's true because people don't like reading. People just they want a quick experience. Grinding 30 hours to get a Holy Adventure Greatsword, that might not be the thing most people want to experience. So this is a major point of divide between, I think, the kinds of people that at PC game and the kinds of people that console game. I think it's a different mentality. I mean, the consolers tend to just enjoy the quick experience, and PC, generally speaking, tend much more interested in this the expansiveness. And I see this constantly. Of course, this is all just anecdotal, and I'd love someone to actually do real studies on this. I mean, if anyone
Oh,
out
I'm
there
sure
watching
that
this,
the publishers have, but they just don't
well,
publish.
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, the publishers are working with some kind of data they've
Yeah.
gathered, and these data are probably telling them that this is, they want less and less dialogue or more streamlining or whatever. So I think that's a major point, which of course dovetails with lower price entry, uh, being bothered less by things, but also quite frankly, I mean, well, based on my observations of PC versus console, I mean, having seen the behavior of console people, I don't want to play on console. I mean, the kind of infighting I mean, it's insane. I've been on multiplayer games and what have you. It's just it's pretty low class, I have to say. And I'd rather have just a calm interaction, the kinds of calm interactions I've experienced on PC, even in multiplayer games or online games, than in the console world, I think.
Well, there are certainly some stereotypes about PC gamers versus console gamers, and I think stereotypes, I mean, they don't spread and they don't stick in people's minds unless there's at least something that people are really noticing when they take the sum total of all they've seen when it comes to consoles and what they've seen with PC, and
Well,
there is that stereotype of
absolutely. I'll
PC.
give you a concrete example. Back in the day when Mass Effect multiplayer was very popular, it was a PC initially a PC exclusive group, a group called the Spectres. Really so-called elite players, whatever that means. But anyway, I was probably invited just because I made guides, but so I became part of the group, and there were some interesting, fruitful discussions going on there. Eventually, the game died down on PC for the most part, and console people kept on playing it for a while. The control of the group was handed over to some Xbox players. They eventually kicked out all the PC players, and it just became this sort of shit talking fest, and it just totally degenerated from interesting build observations and discussions to just mindless insanity. And I've seen similar things like that happen with other games friends have played and told me about. So yeah, I think there's some basis for that stereotype. This is of course not universally the case. There are plenty of nice people who play on console, but um, yeah. So a question of well, perhaps maturity, but also that you and I we want that massive, expansive experience that seems to be pretty unique to BC. And I don't think that you're going to see that in too many console games.
Have you heard of this Kickstarter project, which was smashingly successful? Kingdom Come Deliverance. I forget
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Kingdom something Deliverance.
Real
What do
medieval.
you,
I mean, not non-fantasy, real medieval RPG.
and it promises to be kind of a PC gamer's RPG dream. Though
Yeah.
they are going to be porting it to the consoles, and they say that nothing is sacrificed on either end, which is I'm always skeptical of those kind of claims. I mean, even The Witcher 2, which was supposedly not sacrificing anything on PC, it definitely seemed to me like just the way the game controlled and how much you could do, there was definitely some limitations that they put in place to account for a controller. But I hope that they are able to make what they say they're making, which is a game that is totally realistic, no dragons, no elves. It's not fantasy at all. It's just a medieval simulator, and it's supposed to have really good melee combat, which is a serious problem when it comes to first-person games is that melee combat. And speaking specifically of the juggernaut of PC games with melee combat, which is the Elder Scrolls series, I think that the combat is absolutely freaking terrible in the Elder Scrolls games. It's ridiculously simplistic, outrageously so. It's you left click to do a light attack, hold to do a heavy attack, and other than that, you can use some spells to supplement it. But it is not skillful. It's got no depth to it, and Bethesda doesn't want to change it.
In vanilla.
Okay, well I don't know about what Skyrim Redone has done, but as far as Bethesda and designing the game, it seems that they don't want to change it, and I think part of the reason they don't want to change it is because the Elder Scrolls is now solidly a console series, and so to make more involved combat is very difficult with a controller. And there have been games that have done the first-person melee combat very well, such as old games like Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. Fantastic combat system. It allowed you to attack from different directions and things like that. And also the Mountain Blade series. And I think that is probably the most in-depth melee combat system that has been seen. And I would like for the Elder Scrolls to try and innovate in this way. And Kingdom Come Deliverance has attempted to innovate, and it looks like a very interesting combat system. But they claim it's not going to be any worse on the controller. So I don't know how that's going to work. I'm very interested to be able to play it and see how it feels and how much depth there really is to it.
Yeah, I mean, vanilla Skyrim combat is pretty terrible. Skyrim Redone and some other mods try to make it more interesting, but there's very little you can do in the way of animations. But they have introduced things like time blocks and bonuses and different effects that result from blocking at certain intervals or receiving damage and different things like that. But the animations themselves are, yeah, I mean, but that said, I mean, Skyrim compared to the old, say, Oblivion or Morrowind animations are just, it's leagues ahead. I mean, it sounds bad. It's scary, but it is.
I really, really, really hate the melee combat system of the Elder Scrolls, and they made the ZeniMax Game Studios made the very stupid decision of putting that melee combat system intact into their game, The Elder Scrolls Online, which I've played a bit of in the beta, and it's just so spammy. You just click, 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 click. It's worse than like an action RPG like Diablo clones, because you actually have to click. You can't just hold down the button and continuously attack like in many of these action RPGs. So I don't know what they're thinking with this combat system. It's horrendous. It's got to be updated. They got to do something.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like Fallout, it doesn't have this problem really. I mean, yeah, you got melee weapons, and I don't really remember how they worked, but I imagine it's pretty much identical to the Elder Scrolls. But your main weapons in that game are ranged weapons, guns, that type of thing. So it's not as big an impact on
melee is pretty cheap
plays.
in Fallout. I mean, it's just attacking and then you hack limbs off or whatever. But it's not. There's not any depth to it. I mean, speaking of combat with rep melee combat, I'm interested to see how Dragon Age Inquisition does that. I mean, the developers have promised interesting dynamic combat and blah blah blah, but
is it going to be similar to the way first Dragon Age worked, which is basically you press a button and a special attack goes off? Or
they said they're going to combine it. I mean, as terrible as Dragon Age 2 was, apparently a lot of people felt that the quicker, more action-paced style was an improvement, but they also want go back to the more tactical way of fighting. So They said it's going to be sort of a combination of both. I saw some things in the demo that I didn't like, which kind of reminded me of the Japanese anime, but like, like warriors using whip chains to rein enemies in and pull them. It was kind of, I didn't really like that very much. It kind of looked almost cartoonish. But I'm
That kind of
hoping
stuff
there's
doesn't really fit the Dragon Age world, I don't think.
no, I didn't. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I only saw the demo, and yeah, you're absolutely right. Skyrim, if the melee combat were interesting, it would just wow. Even magic, I mean, arguably, is not. Well, look, okay. Well, what about? I mean, Baldur's Gate 2. I'm going back to old school. Look at the magic system. And I mean, melee was pretty simple, obviously, but it's 1999, 2000, whatever. Um, but you had different spells that you could cast, and you had that would offer certain protections against certain spells. You had certain spells that would allow you to breach those protections. And there was a strategy to it. There was kind of a system behind it. Whereas vanilla Skyrim magic is just fire, ice, lightning. That's it. And yeah, you
Yeah,
have other kinds of spells, but they're just kind of even the illusion spells are just here's a minor illusion spell to inflict fear on the enemy, and it just goes up into those higher level fear spells. It's just as great as the Elder Scrolls are, the actual systems, the magic and combat system, really seem to be lacking. And look, I'm convinced that if they were developing as a PC exclusive title, well, they probably would refine that, I guess. But as we know, a lot of the DLC that had been released for Skyrim was released earlier on Xbox to provide an advantage, and this is something that consoles do constantly. You get console exclusive, right? Console exclusive material that what was it? Infamous, right? You've heard of Infamous, right? The game where you
yep.
play the electric mutant guy, whatever he is.
Got that game for free when Sony's got hacked.
Oh, okay. But so I think we have to say objectively the PC gaming experience, if you're willing to invest the time, is better. But so what these companies do is they create artificial incentives for people to go on console. I mean, get earlier access to Skyrim, blah blah blah, Infamous, and the list goes on and on. There's no reason why you couldn't turn Infamous to an amazing PC game, but they consoles. So I really do see, for me, it's kind of a divestment of resources as well. I mean, a lot of the good stuff that can be put into PC is, well, look at it this way. Dragon Age Inquisition is going to appear on 5 different platforms. When you have to publish a game on 5 different platforms, you are diluting resources. You're diluting energy and effort and investment on the part of the developers. You have to, because you have to, spread yourself thinner. It's just the way it is. Let's say they were only working on the PC. I think that's part of it. Baldur's Gate was developed on the PC for the PC. It was unheard of to put it on console. I mean, it was just what is that? No, it was just PC, and all the energy was in that one PC game as opposed to what Dragon Age Inquisition is going to be. Xbox One, Xbox 3 shitty, PlayStation 4, PC. I mean, how can you not lose on something like that? And so that's what I mean when I say it takes away from the PC gaming experience, because all these companies have to stay profitable and competitive, and so they're just releasing now on 5 different platforms. It's insane.
Right. This is what you were saying at the very beginning about consoles are damaging gaming as a whole, basically.
Yeah,
And
much.
that I think is certainly true, because if you could build video games that would run on supercomputers with 50 graphics cards, that would be the best gaming experience ever possible. It would blow away what we've got now, even on PC. But people don't buy PCs or supercomputers that can run games like that And so what developers create is for the PCs that exist. And that also goes down to consoles versus the PC. Consoles are not as robust in terms of what they can do. The graphical power is not as good. Everybody knows that. But that means that developers have to go and develop for what is the main piece of the market, which is the consoles. So that hurts the entire spectrum of gaming experiences. Just like with the analogy of the supercomputer, if people don't have supercomputers and instead they have gaming PCs, then the possibilities for amazing games coming out on the supercomputer is hurt by PC being the dominant part of the market. So I agree in that sense that certainly consoles are hurting gaming. But I think looking at the entire picture, which is the amount of effort and time and money that people are wanting to put into their gaming hobbies, I think that consoles serve humanity's wish to play video games better than the PC overall. And that is why consoles are so dominant, because the amount of people who want to get a really deep gaming experience and play 1,000 hours of a game is extremely low. And so games are not made to do that.
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is the same thing as most people don't understand using, say, a mobile phone or cell phone, know nothing about radio waves. They just want to turn it on and have it work. I mean, it's the same thing in essence. It's mankind's, effectively their laziness, mankind's laziness and unwillingness to spend mental effort in trying to understand something that might be somewhat more difficult. They'd rather just have the fast track, easy experience. I mean, we see this not just in the gaming world, but across the board.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Stardust. Do you play golf? Is golf one of your hobbies?
I don't know.
Okay. Let's say somebody plays golf. That's one of their hobbies. And they also like to play video games. But for that person, golf is a higher order hobby than playing video games. But they only have a limited amount of time, a limited amount of money to spend towards their hobbies. So a person who likes golf more than video games might decide, you know what, I'm just going to buy an Xbox 3 Shitty. That's going to be what I play games on. I don't really need to go for that full PC experience. So they are doing what is rational to their interests and their desires, their hobbies. And it's not necessarily that I mean, yes, there could be an element of laziness in why people play on console, but I think
I don't disagree with you. I think we're talking about two different things. You're talking about someone who plays games on the side. There are plenty of people like the Rad Brad and all these other guys who are just almost exclusively gamers. I'm talking about the exclusive gamer crowd and the different kinds of mentalities there. Just as I imagine there are people who, I mean, different kinds of hardcore people in the golfing world, which I know nothing about, but I wasn't necessarily talking about the guy who has, a certain amount of hobbies and just wants to devote less, but rather...
Well, here's the thing. I think everybody has many hobbies that they like to enjoy. And some they enjoy more than others, and so they dedicate more time, more energy to those. And I think that describes the vast majority of people who play games. And people who, they got other things that they want to go watch movies with their friends, all that kind of stuff. That takes away from the possibility of them investing time and money into their gaming hobby. And so that's why the console is a perfect option for them. And that's what I meant by saying that based on what the human species enjoys when it comes to playing video games, controlling virtual characters and all that, the way that consoles does it with less investment on the part of the person wanting to play the game, fewer technical problems, a lower upfront cost to enter into it. I think that all of that matches up with what people want to do when they balance out their hobbies in their lives. And that is just where it centers, on that console experience. And if that could change, people could get, I mean, the price of PCs can come down, and it has, it continually does, and people can get more wealthy. And so they could move up to a level of PC. It can move to maybe a low-end PC type of space, and the entire industry will then reorient itself towards what people are deciding to spend on their gaming hobbies. That's my unifying theory of why people play on consoles a lot more than they play on PC. And it does come down to the time and effort that people want to put into this particular hobby compared to their others.
Well, I don't completely agree with you, because so there are plenty of people who are hardcore gamers whose primary, if not only, perhaps only hobby is gaming.
Well, sure, and those people are very visible in the gaming community because they are so hardcore.
Yeah.
But what about the huge? And I don't have any numbers on this, but I have to imagine that the vast majority of people who drive the market, who tell publishers what to put money into when they're deciding what games to publish and where to publish them, I think that describes this enormous set of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't have the data, so I'm always reluctant to comment on things I don't have any information about. You're quite possibly right about that. But, I mean, in my experience in the gaming world, as people who don't just play games on the side, but are just really passionate about gaming, I see a different causation there. But for the overall driving market, I don't feel like I'm informed enough to make a comment, but I think your theory seems to be pretty plausible.
And I just want to quickly go back to what we're talking about with combat systems. And another first-person game that has good melee is, I think, Dead Island. Have you seen that game? Seen how it works?
I've seen it. I've never played it, but I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. The way it works is basically you can target body parts and do damage to them, and it is pretty simple, but it's something that has more depth than just click to do a light attack, hold to do a heavy attack. And so, even if Skyrim moved in that kind, or the Elder Scrolls moved in that kind of direction, I would think it'd be a great improvement. But the limitations of controllers has just it's spawned what we like to call consolitis, right? Which is just a terrible, terrible disease among games that come to PC, with menus that cannot be controlled properly, with the input devices you have at your disposal, with these hideous and terrible radial systems that appear in the middle of your screen and pause the game. It's terrible to have games like that. And if it's a good game, that's in there, but you can hotkey everything that you want to use directly.
Yeah, I mean, this is total theory crafting on my part. I don't have any hard evidence for it, but I think the whole Kickstarter thing is a movement, interestingly enough. I mean, Kickstarter by definition is PC, and almost, not PC exclusive, but a lot of it is. You could see a trend in, say, the next decade where certain developers become more and more fed up, who want to make, say, more computer PC-style games, fed up with the whole having to cater to the consolitis crowd and consoles, to say, no, screw this, we're going to make a PC-exclusive title via Kickstarter.
Instead of going to a publisher, just kicks.
Yeah, exactly. I see this as a trend that's I don't. How long? Kickstarter's been around since 2011? Not a very long time. It's not even been around for 5 years. So we're still in the infant stages of Kickstarter, and it might become a force to be reckoned with in the gaming world if people don't want to kind of spread themselves too thin over multiple platforms, particularly when they want to focus on computer titles primarily that would otherwise be diluted because of the things you mentioned and the fact the things I mentioned with just having to work on just too much at once. And I don't think that's going to happen with Bethesda. I mean, it, this is an unfortunate reality of the free market is that just because something's profitable doesn't necessarily make it good. And in the case of console games, yeah, it's really profitable, and they do. If your theory is correct, then that they're catering to those kinds of people who make up a majority. But nonetheless, the optimized experience, be it in terms of graphics, be it in terms of exploration, be it in terms of character depth, be it in terms of combat and maneuverability, and all of these things suffer for it. So Kickstarter, as a say free market alternative, is fantastic because the developers present their ideas and say, we want to make X game. This is what Obsidian did, by the way. So we want to make a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate. And a lot of the old people like me said, yeah, that sounds great. Make that, we'll support you. And so you have a very close-knit interaction between the buyer or the investor, which is, us, we, and then and the developers. We don't have that with the publishers. Play guys like EA and Bethesda and the rest of them. They just have to focus on the market numbers, whereas Obsidian can say, we want to focus on this kind of thing, and if you're willing to back us, we will move ahead, full throttle.
And I think that's fantastic that we've got these games that are specifically saying to us as PC gamers, hey, you want this experience with no compromises that have to be made to, first of all, run the game on consoles, and second of all, be controlled by a controller? Well, here we go, and support us, and we'll make the game. And you've got games like Star Citizen, which I think is PC exclusive.
Yeah, crazy
is that PC
support.
Exclusive?
It is, yeah, crazy support on that game. Crazy support.
Yeah, and it's going to be, it's going to be top quality in every respect. In terms of graphics, in terms of I've heard of, I don't know a ton about it, but I've heard of some of the systems that are going to be in the game.
It's not even my kind of game, but it sounds great. I might not even end up playing it, but it still sounds great, particularly if people want that genre. But that's the whole beauty of the Kickstarter. People wanted I don't even know what sort of game it is exactly, a kind of a space thing, real-time space exploration. Yeah, but they wanted that, and they're getting that. And I invested my meager money into Project Eternity because I wanted a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate with the same depth, strategic combat, things like that, story. I really wanted it to have that, so that's why I supported them. And so even if you can, these individual projects or just go to specific genres, I might never play Star Citizen, and I still think it's great that those people were able to get the funding to make a game that a lot of people wanted to play, that is PC exclusive, and maybe they'll port it later to a console, but who knows. But without having to make all those compromises that go on with the consoles. I think, and this is interesting because people, obviously I should say I'm not hostile to people who play on consoles. I joke about it, but there's no reasons to be hostile if someone plays on a console. But on the other hand, people who think that there's no issue whatsoever, and I get a lot of these, who think, oh, just play on whatever you enjoy, it doesn't matter. It does matter. That's all I want to say. It does matter for a lot of the reasons we've cited and talked about. You want to play on a console, it's fine, but there are some good arguments to be made, or rather descriptions of the differences between the kinds of people who play it and the games and so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, there's some defensiveness on the part of people who primarily play on consoles, and rightly so, because people who push PC games can be assholes. There's no question about that. I've seen it. It's ridiculous. It's just, I mean, it's just the way you play games. It's not a part of who you are, and it doesn't make you better than anyone else. However, there are real issues that arise from the fact that most people play on consoles, and we've talked about the big picture with that, and the way it drives publishers to like you said, cause their developers to spread themselves thin. So that's got to be taken into account as far as the objective experience goes. But unfortunately, subjectively, humanity thinks consoles are great, and they provide the type of experiences that they want. And the benefits of the type of experience a PC can give is not good enough to be worth the extra effort, the extra time. But I think hopefully, maybe not this generation of consoles, which is basically a retread of every previous generation, no major advancements. Hopefully in the next one there will be something that really brings up the level of console experience. Maybe not in a similar way to the way PCs are, but something at least that will be a big game changer and pushes gaming forward rather than what really is just, it feels like stagnation right now, even with a new generation of consoles out. It just, nothing exciting seems to be going on in terms of the way games are made, except for, as we've discussed, Kickstarter. That's the only thing that I think
once
really
again, I mean, what I think is going to be interesting, Eincrou, is in the next 2 or 3 years, one major RPG producing company, BioWare, with Dragon Age Inquisition, I mean, this will be their crucible. This will be their test. I mean, they Mass Effect 3, I don't know if you watch the Smud Boy talk, but I mean, anyway, Mass Effect 3 is an abomination. It's just terrible. I mean, I try to enjoy it still for what it is, but so Dragon Age 2 was terrible. So they have this track record now of just not making good role-playing games. If they, pardon my French, fuck up Dragon Age Inquisition, I mean, forget about Mass Effect, but I think the people who are most affected by that are the PC people, and this will create a momentum for Kickstarter. Who knows? Maybe down the line, BioWare will just say, you know, let's just disband and start making Kickstarter games. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just saying that I see hope, even if there is stagnation. I see hope for the PC world, because even though we're not as big as the console people are and the demand, the evidence of Kickstarter and getting ever more popular, even as we speak, is there. And you know, whatever the game might be, who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky. You've talked about this. I've talked about this. Get a kind of a spiritual successor to Vampire the Masquerade or something, right? Something like that. They're just, Kickstarter really has almost limitless possibilities. It's just a question of will, implementation, and getting the funding for it. And it's not limited by having to cross platform cater. So I do see a slimmer of hope. It's a shame that formerly good companies, though, because they're spreading themselves so thin, because they have to cater to a certain sector, are really just kind of losing their touch, you know.
I wonder how much vision is kind of be vision and what's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of it. It starts with a P or something. How many ambitious ideas are going down the drain just because, I don't know, for some reason or other, the console doesn't have enough memory to do it, and it seems like quite a lot would have to be axed from the drawing board just because they just can't handle it on all the platforms they want to release to. I mean, I've seen a a video by a guy who's been involved with gaming development, and he's actually an artist, and he was doing kind of a mock pitch for some art designs for Fallout 4. And one thing he said in that was very striking to me was, like, one of the ideas he had for his pitch, his mock pitch, was to have seasons in Fallout 4. And so there would be like a winter map, and there'd be a spring map and a summer map for Boston, where it's supposedly taking place.
Yeah.
But he said that type of thing is kind of unlikely to get approved because, A, the cost of redoing the same map numerous times, but also because of memory constraints on certain platforms.
Interesting you mentioned this. I heard the same thing about Skyrim, and because what happened with Skyrim eventually with regards to the seasons was, instead of turning the entire land seasonal, you just got
by zones.
Yeah, so if you go to Riften Valley, it's like autumn, and if you go far up, it's north, and then you get kind of more kind of a springish feeling in the far west. Yeah. Whereas if it had been PC exclusive, you could have the zones, but you could also have the winter. You could have different degrees of winter, and so on and so forth. So that's obviously a factor. Obviously.
It's interesting because there actually is a recent game that did do seasons, which is Assassin's Creed 3. They have this huge wilderness area to run around in and explore and hunt and do collectible nonsense. But they did have a spring and a winter map for each, and it was really cool to see the same locations at different times of the year. And it was really well done, too. So,
mind you, there are mods on
Skyrim,
PC Skyrim, where you can do that, but it's not a vanilla game. So,
yeah, things like that. I mean, that's just one example of possibilities for enhancing the experience that might have to be cut. Though they could run on a good PC, can't run on consoles. So,
and the other thing is that, in regards to Skyrim or say Fallout, I mean, Bethesda has a creation kit, and Bethesda gets inspired by some of the mods people made. I mean, there was a mod called a mod that was sort of a build your own home kind of thing, which at the time was pretty innovative. A couple of months later, there's this thing called Hearthfire comes out, which is essentially build your own home. And Bethesda has this agreement, basically, or rule that they can take anything they want from any player-made mod without giving credit to it. I mean, that's just the way it works. So a lot of people suppose that was maybe inspired by that build your own home kind of mod. And so Bethesda knows the power of the PC. They know, I mean, they get inspired themselves with ideas, and it's ongoing. But unfortunately, as you said, the common denominator is just the average Joe. I'm not referring to Angry Joe now, though. I actually literally wasn't, but now that I think of it, the guy Angry Joe in any event is the guy who doesn't. I mean, he doesn't spend 1,000 hours plus in one game. He jumps from one game to the next. I think he's very representative of the common gamer in this respect, and as long as that's the market, the driving force, then that's not going to change. But we will have continual improvement in the Kickstarter area, and I mean that's my hope for the future. I've kind of lost interest in a lot of the mainstream stuff. I'm going to probably get Dragon Age Inquisition, but it's been hyped a lot. They spent a lot more time investing in it than they did in the previous title. But if it turns out to be a flop, I don't know. Then I'll just invest my energy and time, money in the Kickstarter projects that seem to appeal to me, as these major companies seem to increasingly fail. I mean, Fallout 4, of course. I mean, but the thing is, but those games still have the modding capabilities. So the Bethesda games are safe in a way because you can just mod them to hell with the point where they become different games. before I forget to mention, uh, lest the viewers or listeners forget, Dragon Age Origins was heavily modifiable. There were some really great story-driven mods. I participated in some voice acting for one of them. Magic mods. It was fantastic. That gave the game a lot of replayability. What did they do for Dragon Age 2? They scrapped the mod. It was called the Toolkit, I think. It was called simply the Toolkit. But you could do so much with it. There were some really great little mods, some great mods affecting combat, affecting story, everything. They got rid of it. And
Shameful.
well,
Do you know
they
why? Is it just they didn't want to put the time in to make the toolkit function?
they never explained the reason why. They just said they weren't going to put it in anymore. My suspicion was, yes, probably they invested too much time, which would have been, of course, only for the PC, right?
Yep.
So that's gone, and it's not coming back. It's once you get rid of it, it's gone forever. It's kind of like the opposite of U.S. government legislation. Once you put in a bad piece of legislation, you can never get rid of it. Usually, it's kind of the opposite. Once you get rid of it, you can never get it back. It's a shame. I even messed around with the toolkit. I learned a little bit about it. There was this great mod called the Winter Forge, changed the magic experience and magic item experience completely. Great story mods involving blood mages and just wow, it was great. But they scrapped that, and it's certainly not coming back. So, I mean, is it directly because of consoles? Who knows? But ultimately, it seems likely. If you're not willing, we'll put it this way: it has to be the reason. If it's too much energy and effort to make something like a toolkit, which inevitably will be PC exclusive in terms of its application, what other reason could there be? You know.
So no word on the toolkit for Inquisition?
Oh well, no, they said they're not. There's not going to be.
Oh, they said there's wow.
Well,
At least they're honest.
well, why? I mean, why would they invest the extra energy? I mean, they're working on 5 different platforms. I mean, the stupid PC people just have a toolkit. I mean, forget about it. And it's funny though to me because Bethesda was smart. They kept on, well, they call it different things, you know, toolkit. It's all the same, the creation kit, but these modding kits essentially. Because Bethesda learns, they get ideas from modders and they implement them in their games, and they encourage people to do this stuff. What did BioWare do? Too complicated, let's get rid of it. Even though they could have, Dragon Age could have been modded to hell, and then the next one, and the next one, and they could have profited from having a PC modding community, essentially.
It's amazing because there used to be a time, probably the mid first decade of this millennium, when modding was absolutely enormous on PC. Most big releases had it. I mean, even something like Crysis, which came out in like, what, 2006 or something like that? It was a PC exclusive, a pure PC game, had modding, and then Crysis 2 was also a console game, and the game just kind of went downhill. But there used to be a time when everything, it seemed like, could be modded to some degree.
Well,
now, very few games can be modded.
Once again, decrease in complexity. You talked about the Baldur's Gate series, the story complexity, the questing complexity. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of evolution, where you move from simple to complex. It's you get complex and it becomes more and more simple.
Crysis is the perfect series to describe that, because it used to be that you had you had these superpowers basically that could be activated off and on, and they would be like 5 different abilities you could use. And then Crysis 2, they started merging those abilities into one button basically, so that it would fit on a controller. It's just stuff like that is so irritating. Irritating.
I mean, Mass Effect, the spacebar, Mass Effect 2 and 3, spacebar, it covers 5 or 6 different functions. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one problem that Total Biscuit points out a lot is certain buttons have so many functions applied to them, and they're functions that can go off at the same time as well. Like snapping to cover is a very common one that does multiple things, and you snap to cover when you don't really mean to. I hate it when they do, like, it's a game where you have to pick stuff up off of the ground. Like maybe it's a shooter, a third-person shooter or something, and you want to pick up a weapon, but it's it was dropped right next to a piece of cover, so you're like popping in and out of cover just trying to pick up a weapon. It's so irritating, but that's what's got to be done to fit the functions onto a controller. And like I was saying earlier, the radial menu is just so bad. I mean, it pauses the game so you got time to actually select what you want. And oh my God, BioShock Infinite. BioShock 1 was, I can't remember if it was PC exclusive, but it certainly was a PC game through and through. Everything about it was very PC. And you could select, first of all, you could hold tons and tons of weapons. You could hold every weapon in the game at once, I think. And you could select all of those weapons with the number keys. And then you had plasmids, which were basically like magic. And you could hold quite a few plasmids at once, and you could select them directly by pressing the function keys. In BioShock Infinite, they dumbed it down. Consolitis, a very acute case of consolitis with that game. You can only hold 2 weapons, and there are fewer vigors, or fewer equivalents of vigors. No, they are vigors, or plasmids. I forget which is which, but I can think of so many game series where the first couple games were, PC focused, and then it just goes downhill. Devolution.
Yeah, I mean, complex to simple. I mean, this is the opposite of biological evolution. But the only area where you could argue it gets more complex are graphics, but story, combat, everything becomes simpler, seemingly at least simpler over time, and this will remain so. And like I said, the only hope is Kickstarter, which is working on alternative projects, and because I'm willing to try out a couple more games that BioWare puts out. I mean, because modding is so important in Bethesda games. I mean, I'll probably keep on getting Bethesda titles, even if melee combat remains bad. But there's not a whole lot out in the gaming market that interests me just because of the limited possibilities. I mean, I'm a weird guy, I see a lot of my Steam friends play, a million different games. I like to play, I mean, it's part of my French, the shit out of one game, and just try everything out and try mods. And this is just the way I've always done it. There is, even to this day, a robust modding community for Baldur's Gate 2, 15 years after the fact. Story changes, combat. I mean, this is what makes a game like that great. But I don't know. BioWare stopped after the Dragon Age Origins toolkit. They got rid of that. I had this vague hope that maybe the next Mass Effect series would be somehow moddable, but unlikely. That would be just tremendously amazing if they could. Imagine creating your own stories with alien races, because it won't just be Shepard anymore. I mean, you have these other options, and I don't know. It would be pretty cool, but won't happen.
Unfortunately, BioWare seems to be losing it. I mean, they've released a disaster of an MMO, the Old Republic.
Never played it, heard a lot of bad things.
It was good in terms of the story, but everything else, bleh, unfortunately.
And Mass Effect 3 was just... It was bad. I mean, I love the series overall, but it just... I have to agree. If you haven't watched it, you should watch my interview with Smudboy. You know Smudboy, right? He does.
Is that the one who? I think I saw you liked one of his videos where he's talking about people saying he has no humanity and
Yeah.
No, is that the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's right. I mean, Mass Effect 3 is just a bungling mess, and it just every choice you make in that series is just totally irrelevant because of it. It's just I don't know. So I don't know what BioWare is doing anymore, but they are hyping Dragon Age Inquisition a tremendous amount. So will they deliver? I don't know. It sounds like, I mean, a lot of different things like voice actors for different races and all this other stuff. So I guess we'll see. But
we will indeed. So we're quite a bit over an hour now. What do you think about closing this out?
Yeah,
I do want to say one more, bring up one more topic though.
Okay.
One thing that many people don't know about when it comes to the PC being the superior platform, and that is that right now, for regular people like you and me, people that don't have access to like government simulators and stuff like that, PC is the only place where you can get a genuinely incredible stereoscopic 3D experience. Stereoscopic 3D is something that a lot of people don't like, and I totally understand why they don't like it, because their experience of it is films in the theaters, films on 3D TVs at home, and like these carnival shows at like Disney World where you go in and they simulate mice running at your feet. That kind of thing is what people think of when they think of 3D. But when it comes to the PC, it can give you an experience that is just like playing a PC game, just like playing a game in 2D on PC, but you have that extra amount of depth perception into the worlds you're seeing. And the only place you can do this is on PC, because with movies, the fatal flaw of films that use stereoscopic 3D is that it's one camera recording one thing, one point in time. So it is what it is showing you on the TV, on the movie screen, is exactly what that camera captured at that point in time. Now the problem is with stereoscopic 3D, it's very sensitive to viewing situations. It's not like 2D where you can have people from all different viewing angles, all different distances, looking at the screen and getting a pretty good experience. You have to be in a narrower range of viewing angles and at the right distance to get a good sense of depth that's not painful. And unfortunately, since these films are catering to millions of people, many of which have no acclimation to stereoscopic viewing, they have to compromise the 3D so much that it's just a gimmick. It is absolutely a gimmick in its applications in cinema. But with PC, what can happen is that the viewer can customize exactly what they want. This is the theme of PC, right? You can customize what you want. And so you can set as much depth, you can make it as impactful an experience as you like. And unfortunately, nobody knows about this. And I mostly blame NVIDIA because they have great hardware for doing this, but they didn't market it as being any different than what people have already seen from console games in 3D and also from movies in 3D. And I remember Total Biscuit did a video, and I'm sorry if you can hear the ringing in the background. Total Biscuit did a video a couple months ago where he's doing a tour of his office, and I noticed that he has two of the same 3D monitor that I have. And this is a guy who is a PC-focused channel. I mean, Total Biscuit, I think everyone knows Total Biscuit, so I don't have to explain who he is and what he does. He's a PC-focused channel, but every time a game has stereoscopic 3D functionality built into the game, which is very rare, he makes a joke out of it because he's never actually seen 3D on his two 3D monitors. And so I left him a comment on his video. I didn't ever expect him to read it, just saying, hey, this guy has two 3D monitors. Why does he keep shitting on 3D? He can check it out for himself by spending just $100 to get the glasses to make it work. And he actually did respond back saying that Well, I've played racing games on my console, on my TV. Console 3D is absolute shit because first of all, we know consoles are limited in processing power, so they look worse than PC to begin with, even in 2D. But when you're rendering things in 3D, you're creating two separate images for each eye, so it's double the power needed to get the same result. So he's played these console games with stripped down visuals, and they only run at 30 FPS if you're lucky. So it's not comparable at all, and he unfortunately refuses to learn about one of the greatest strengths of his platform, which is stereoscopic 3D gaming. Genuine, absolutely, without a doubt, an improvement to the gaming experience as long as it works. Many games aren't designed for being viewed like this, so they don't work. And as we were talking about earlier, there's some effort that has to go into getting a good experience. You got to learn how to set things that will work for your situation, that will be comfortable for you to watch for long duration, and that takes some effort and takes some learning. Unfortunately, even PC gamers aren't willing to do that much learning and put that much effort into it. So, as small as the PC gaming market is, the scene is, the number of people who are willing to put in that kind of time and effort and energy and money, stereoscopic 3D scene is a fraction of that, which is quite funny that there are circles within circles. So I just want to point out that people who think that it's because they've seen Avatar know what it's like to play stereoscopic 3D PC games or play PC games viewed in stereoscopic 3D. I have no idea whatsoever. And if you can find yourself a 3D TV, you can find on YouTube footage that people have taken of them playing games on PC in stereoscopic 3D, and it's a huge world of difference. Our eyes, we have two eyes, we're designed to get two slightly separate images into each of our eyes. And what stereoscopic 3D does is it allows two separate views of the virtual game world that you're looking at to be sent to your eyes. And since it's rendered in real time, you can modify what the virtual eyes that are seeing the world are looking at and how they see it, and therefore how you perceive it as well. So that is, I think, kind of the hidden power of PC gaming that nobody knows about, not even Total Biscuit, the main guy on YouTube when it comes to PC gaming. And I think it's an absolute shame that that people don't know about it, because it really is an incredible addition to your gaming experience. And I still play lots of games in 2D because some don't work as well as others, but if I can play it in 3D, I do. And it's just a shame that it's so hard to show people what it looks like. But as long as people know that it's something that is out there, hopefully maybe others will discover it. And that's kind of what we hope when it comes to console gamers and PC gaming. We hope that they will try it. They'll realize, hey, I can do so much more here, and decide I'm going to move over to this. And then that drives the market in a different direction, a direction that I think we've spent a lot of time lamenting where the market is now and hoping that it will get better in the future.
I have nothing to add to that.
All right. So thanks, everyone, for watching. What is this, the third one we've done?
I believe so.
Yes. Yeah, so thanks for listening to our third podcast. And I guess we need to come up with something to do in the future, but we will be back, hopefully.
We'll be back, and as always, may the gods be with you.
Take care.